Houston. Houston, we have a problem. DJ Apollo has landed. I repeat, DJ Apollo has landed at Hitmix 88.9 WEIU.
Greetings and salutations. Welcome to the Tales of Music and Film podcast. My name is DJ Apollo, or aka Christian Taylor, and welcome to another amazing recording. I always say this. I'm super excited to be recording another episode. I love doing the show. I always feel the need to get that out every time I do this. So yeah, I'm pretty excited for this one because I am going to be reviewing an album by one of my favorite bands of all time. So this is going to be a good one. I'm pretty thrilled to be doing this one. So today we are on the topic of music, and I figured that it would be cool to do a Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers album. Now I know, DJ Apollo, you've already covered Wildflowers, but that was a Tom Petty solo album. Wildflowers was Tom Petty's second solo album and is my favorite Tom Petty record. That was episode 2 of the podcast, which you can find, and that recording was a lot of fun. I was still a work in progress at that point, but that one was really good, and I figured, why not do a Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers album? And what's funny is I had a hard time picking a Tom Petty and Heartbreaker album to cover. So I had this good idea. So on Facebook, you have fan pages, right? It could be anything, whether it's like movies, TV shows, or music. And there is a Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers fan page that I found on Facebook, and I've been following it for a good couple of years now. And I thought it would be a good idea. So I go on Facebook and I make a post. I chose 3 albums that I was stuck between reviewing. It was Damn the Torpedoes, Hypnotic Eye, and Into the Great Wide Open. And what's funny is it wasn't even like a competition. There was no like, it wasn't like a close race. Like, I am not kidding you when I say that there was about 70 plus comments of people saying Damn the Torpedoes should be the album that I should cover. I had like 1 or 2 people say Into the Great Wide Open, then about 2 or 3 would say Hypnotic Eye. So, like I said, Damn the Torpedoes was like, it was the ultimate winner. So I'm like, oh, okay, well, there you go. So that's how I chose this album, and I actually own this amazing record on vinyl and CD. This is a fantastic record, and I figured it'd be a good idea, before I get into the album itself, I think I'd like to take a moment and talk about my history with the Heartbreakers. So, Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers is like one of my favorite bands of all time. If I had to do like a top 3 favorite bands, it would have to be AC/DC, Creedence, and Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. Those are the 3 bands that I listen to the most, more than anything else. And I became a Tom Petty and Heartbreakers fan, unfortunately, a lot later. I didn't get into Tom Petty's music until after he passed away, and what really buzzed me out, Tom Petty's death was what led me to finding his music in the band, because I remember when I was in high school, he passed away in 2017, and I would have been starting my senior year of high school when he passed away, and I remember seeing his death on the news and that he was a musician, and that's how I got introduced to his music. I researched him and the Heartbreakers, and that's how I found their music, and my love for him started from that point. And unfortunately, I never got to see Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers live. That is like a huge regret for me. But I did make up for it. I got to see me and my dad just this past summer in 2022. We got to see Mike Campbell with his band, The Dirty Knobs, and that was very awesome. So Mike Campbell is the lead guitar. He was the lead guitar player for Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, and he's now a guitarist in Fleetwood Mac as well. Fun fact. And getting to see him was very incredible. It was at a music festival, and me and my dad were about right in front of the stage, and Mike and his band ended up doing about 3 Heartbreaker songs while they were playing their own original craft. So that was cool. That whole experience was like a second chance or a redemption for me. It was the greatest second chance I ever could have asked for. So it wasn't. So I got to make up for it in the end, and I could not be more happy about it. And the Tom Petty music, like I have almost every Heartbreaker CD in my collection. Like I have a good majority. And dude, the Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, their music is so timeless for me. It's just like, I have a greatest hits collector CD that I have. It was released not long after his death, and it has For Real. It's a song that was never released on any of the albums. It's a 2-disc set that's just all of his greatest hits. And that whole CD collection, I listen anytime I know I'm going to be driving long distances. That's the first CD that I grab out of my CD collection. Tom Petty's music is like the perfect road trip music. I think I even saw somewhere that Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers music was voted like the perfect road trip music. I don't know 100% if that's true or not. Don't quote me, but in my opinion, it is. His music is amazing. Like the Heartbreakers they were an amazing band, and they had a career of 47 years. You know, like man, they kicked so much butt for almost 5 full decades. You know, like man. This is one of those bands, I don't think they've ever written one bad song, like ever. Their music has never failed to lift my spirits and make me really feel something. And music for me today just doesn't do that anymore. And man, like I said, Tom Petty and the Heartbreaker music, it's incredible. My favorite albums, like I said, Wildflowers is my favorite Tom Petty record of all time. That is like an amazing record. And for the Heartbreakers, I really like Into the Great Wide Open. That's an amazing album. And that was the last one that featured original drummer Stan Lynch before he left. That was the last album he did with them before he left. And I think another album that I'm really into was their second album, which, let me see, it was called You're Gonna Get It. And it was released in '78, 2 years after their first album, which is just called Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. And that leads us into the third album, Damn the Torpedoes, which was released a year later in '79. You're Gonna Get It is a very good album. I actually have this one on vinyl as well, and it's a very good record. And their original album is pretty good too. But man, Damn the Torpedoes, though, is a great album. And one of the main reasons for this, so here's a little hint. This album is what put them on the map, like for real. You see, if you go back through history, every band has that album that shot them into superstar stardom. You see, a band, they have to experiment with their music until they finally release that one record that really gets them well known. Like, for example, I think for Metallica, for example, when Master of Puppets came out, I think that was when they really hit the big time. And AC/DC, Highway to Hell was the album that really, really got them famous. And for the Heartbreakers, it was Damn the Torpedoes. This was the album that made them extremely well known, and their fame only went up from this point. And this album is incredible with what it accomplished. Now, before we go any further with more information regarding the album, I would like to give a brief mention to the band members. And the Tom Petty Heartbreakers lineup is it stayed pretty much the same over the years. Unfortunately, it is kind of rare though for a band to keep all the original members for a long period of time. It's kind of a rare thing. ZZ Top, I think, held that record the longest to this point, but unfortunately their bass player just passed away recently. But that band, I think, holds the record for the longest time of having the original lineup. And let's see here. So, Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, right? You got Mike Campbell, who is the rhythm guitarist. You have Tom Petty, who is, I would say Mike's more the lead guitar, and I think Tom's more of a rhythm guitarist, but that's me. Stan Lynch on the drum kit, and then you had Howie Epstein as the bass guitar player, Bill Mott Tench as the piano player, and actually, I take it back. Howie was not in the band yet when this album came out. Ron Blair was the bass player. And that's really your main lineup. You have Mike Campbell, Tom Petty, Stan Lynch, Bill Mott Tench, and Ron Blair. That is the lineup for this band. And I think it's kind of crazy, that Howie passed away from drugs in the early 2000s, and then they invited Ron back to replace the man who replaced him. But it's really sad, though, what happened to Howie. But he's been gone, oh my gosh, I did not realize this, but Howie passed away on February 23rd of 2003. So, next month, he'll be gone 20 years. I had no idea, but those are the band members for the recording of this album. Now, that leads us into the album itself. So, with the record, here's to give you an idea, right, of just how amazing this record did. The album went on to become certified triple platinum by the Recording Industry Association of America. In 2003, the album was ranked number 313 on the Rolling Stone magazine's list of the 500 greatest albums of all time and 231 in a 2020 revised list. See, that's just to give you an idea. It's like when your album goes triple platinum, I think that says something, dude, this record is just crammed full with so many amazing songs that have really just stood the test of time. It's like I always say, Tom Petty's music, it just speaks to you. It just really does. The messages for me on so many of his songs just about enjoying life, having fun, and just living a good life. His music just never fails to just lift your spirits and make you think about things. And that's what music should do. It should make you feel something, and it should really open your mind and make you think about stuff. It's poetry. And the next thing I would like to discuss is the songs on here. And maybe we could kind of jump into the lyrics. Let's just play it by ear. Let's see what happens. So we have the opening song, which is Refugee. And this was a song that Mike covered at the concert that I went to. And Refugee is an amazing song, and I like it a lot. This was the very first Heartbreaker song that I listened to. This was the song that got me into the band. And if we take a look here, the lyrics go like this. So you have the opening verse. We got something, we both know it. We don't talk too much about it. Ain't no real big secret all the time. Somehow we get around it. Listen, it really don't matter to me, baby. You believe what you want to believe. Now, to be honest with you, I'm not sure exactly what the band's talking about with this song, but I have a theory that this song represents a huge majority of people that get left behind. Like a class of people who don't have a whole lot of money. Like our society only cares about the richer people, but the modern people who are, who don't have a whole lot of money, they're just left behind and they don't get any help. And I feel like this next verse here, I think really helps, because this is just my theory on what they're talking about. The next verse goes, somewhere, somehow, somebody must have kicked you around some. Tell you why you want to lay there and revel in your abandon. You see, someone must have been kicked you around some. I feel like that's them saying, the government's kicking you around, oh, sorry, you don't have a whole lot of money, so we're not gonna help you with anything. We're only after people with the real money. and lay there and you're abandoned. Like they just let it happen. Like they can't do anything. They just lay there and let what's happening continue instead of trying to maybe fix their situation. And that's what I get from this song in particular. And it continues with lyrics such as, "No, baby, we ain't the first. I'm sure a lot of other lovers been burned. Right now, this seems real to you, but it's one of those things you gotta feel to be true." And that one honestly has got me a little confused. Like the first half of this verse, like, "No, baby, we ain't the first." I feel like that's them saying, like, no, like we're not the first people that the government has screwed over, and we're not going to be the last either. Like it's going to continue. Like, our system of money, if you will, or currency is really screwed up, and that it's not going to be fair for everyone, and they keep taxing us more and more. Like I wonder if that's what they're talking about. That's the message that I get. Now, this is just pure interpretation. Like, I could be completely wrong for all I know. This is just pure speculation for me. And that's really the main gist of this song, other than, the main verse. So those are some of the lyrics regarding Refugee. Now, we have another song on here that was a huge success. "Here Comes My Girl." This is another one that I'd highly recommend you look up. And it goes like this, okay? So here goes some of the lyrics for "Here Comes My Girl." We're going to try to see if we can try to get an idea of what they're talking about with this song. Sometimes, I don't know why, but this old town just seems so hopeless. I ain't really sure, but it seems I remember the good times were just a little bit more in focus. Now, that first verse is making me think that a small town is like dying out. It's like someone's memory of a town, and the memory is like fading away. And it just feels like, the good times have passed. Like this town, like it's fallen apart. Time's done its thing. There's not a whole lot of action. Like it's not what it used to be. And that's what I get from that first verse. And it continues with, "But when she puts her arms around me, I can somehow rise above it. Yeah, man, when I got that little girl standing right by my side, I can tell the whole wide world to shove it, hey." So I wonder if that verse is talking about, like, even though that things aren't what they used to be, that you should still be hopeful, and don't let the world tell you that all hope is lost. Like, stay positive and try to look for the good things, even in the worst of times. That's what I seem to get from that section. And then after the main chorus, it goes back to, "Every now and then I get down to the end of the day. I have to stop and ask myself why I've done it. It just seems so useless to have to work so hard, and nothing really seems to come from it." I get the idea that maybe he's talking about that at the end of the day, you stand back and wonder, like, why do I continue to stay so positive when the world continues to get to a really darker place? Like, no matter what I do, I can't stop the inevitable. The world's going to continue to get dark and worse, and I'm here, being positive, like, and nothing good's coming from it. It's the same old thing. So why do I continue to do that? And then the next verse, "But then she looks at me in the eye and says, 'We're going to last forever.' And man, I can't begin to doubt it. No, because it just feels so good, so free, and so right. I know we ain't never going to change our minds about it, hey." See, that right there reinforces the fact it's like, maybe like this girl that the guy's with is reassuring him that no matter what happens, we are not going to change ourselves, and that we are going to continue to be who we are. We're going to stay positive, and we can't begin to doubt it, And it feels so good, like we're happy to be alive, we're living our lives, we're not going to let this dark world ruin our positive, happy lives, and we're never going to change our minds about it. Like, hey, that's pretty cool. I mean, this is my take on this song, but like, I feel like that could be what they're talking about. Maybe, who knows? It's kind of like if you have listened to my American Pie song covering that I did with my buddy Preston, like one of the main things we talked about in that recording, it's like humans have a big history of like thinking that lyrics in a lot of songs have like these deeper meanings. Then it's like you find out it really didn't. Like I'm pretty sure that I'm probably am getting this way off, but hey, you know, it's my show. It's just DJ Apollo and speculation. So hey, let's keep it going. And here is another verse. This will probably be the last one that I'll read regarding this song, but I highly recommend you look up this song for yourself and really give it a listen, along with Refugee. And every time it seems like there ain't nothing left no more, I find myself having to reach out and grab a hold of something. Yeah, I just catch myself wondering, waiting and worrying about silly little things that don't add up to nothing. Now, what I get from this one, okay, and this will be the last thing I'll talk about for Here Comes My Girl, but every time it seems like there ain't nothing left no more. So I feel like that's something, you know, like, hey, we're going back to like how bad things are getting. It feels like there's nothing left. All hope is lost. What do I do now? I find myself having to reach out for anything at all that'll help keep my spirits up. I feel like that's what it's talking about. Like you're at that point now in your life, you're finding anything at all that'll give you just a little bit of hope to keep going. And I catch myself wondering, you know, like you're sitting around worrying, waiting, you know, waiting's the hardest part, which is another Heartbreaker song that's really good. Like, you know, you're sitting there waiting and wondering, are things going to get worse or are things going to start to get better? You don't know. And then at the same time, you know, whenever you're in a position like this, you find yourself worrying about these little things that don't add up to nothing that you shouldn't be worrying about in the first place. And that's what I get from that verse alone. So really, that's about the main verses for Here Comes My Girl. And here we go. This next song is one I've been waiting to talk about. I really enjoy this song a lot. Like I feel very attached to this next song, and it's called Even for Losers. Now, the reason why I like this song so much is just like it really, really speaks to me. And I'm sure many of you listening to this recording can relate to the fact, if you think back, right, to your days in high school. For me, high school was a mixed experience. Had a lot of good memories and a lot of bad. And I was not, quote, popular. Thank goodness I wasn't. Popularity's stupid, in my opinion. I don't care. I don't need, you know, people's attention. You know, like I'm not an attention seeker. But I'm just saying, you know, in high school, I was about as outcast as you could get, and I'm so happy I was. It was not a bad thing. I'm just saying back then I thought it was, but it's not. Being an outcast is the best thing in the world, but you know, back then teenage me thought that being an outcast was so horrible. I wanted to be like everybody else, which is a horrible mindset to have, by the way. And I felt like I was just a straight up loser, you know, like that I had nothing to offer the world, and the way everybody was treating me only reinforced that so much more. You know, I felt like I didn't have anything to offer and that I was never going to add up to anything. You know, I never thought I was going to be able to go out and do big things with my life. You know, I just felt, you know, like I was a very unlikable person. You know, I just wrote a paper recently, you know, it was a kind of like I wouldn't say it's a poem. It was a personal monologue of me having an imaginary conversation with a couple of friends of mine who grew up to be narcissistic jerks who just kicked me to the curb and just threw me out of their lives like I was nothing. And I ended up having to, you know, go to therapy and get some stuff figured out, you know, and it was a hard time for me. But hey, I got over it. I'm the best version of myself that I've ever been. And this song, it really speaks to me because, you know, for me, this song just talks about that. It's good to be a loser, like unlike all these other jerks who think they have life all figured out. You didn't let them push you around, like like you. They thought that you were a loser, but you're not. You stayed true to yourself, and you didn't change or compromise for anyone. And look where you are now. And this song just really speaks to me because I feel like this song is like Tom talking about stuff he did when he was a teenager. Like this first verse here, well, it was nearly the summer. We sat on your roof. Yeah, we smoked cigarettes and we stared at the moon. And I showed you stars you never could see. Babe, it couldn't have been that easy to forget about me. And I feel like this verse can be taken in two ways. Like you're remembering the good times you had when you were a kid. You're not letting you're thinking about the good times. Like you're not letting the bad times ruin you, Like you're remembering the good times, which is what I try to do because my mind has a bad habit, right, of really focusing on all those negative memories I had when I was a teenager, and I forget to think about the good stuff. And this verse really says that to me, like remember the good times you had and forget about the bad ones, like I feel like that final line there, it couldn't have been that easy to forget about me, quote, the bad times. And it's not, man. The bad times have a habit of creeping back into your mind, And that brings us to, baby, time meant nothing. Anything seemed real. Yeah, you could kiss like fire. You made me feel like every word you said was meant to be. No, it couldn't have been that easy to forget about me. And I feel like there's two ways to look at that. I feel like that this verse here is going into, like when you're a teenager, especially in this generation, like relationships don't work out, like, and, for me, like, I've had my heart broken 4 times, so I understand what it's like to go through, bad, a bad relationship, and they're not easy to get over. They're not, like it's not easy, it's hard, and I feel like that very line, you could kiss like fire and you made me feel like, like with when I was in, when I was dating, when I was younger in high school, like those relationships, I felt so alive because I felt like I had someone who I could really share my experiences with, and that, we were like a team, like we were like that, we were a team. It was like us versus like the world or something, like that's how it felt, to me, that we were a team, we were cool, and we didn't care what people thought of us. And, those, when I was dating, like I really felt alive when I was with, when I had a girlfriend, I felt so alive, and I felt like a teenager. I really did, and it felt good, to be alive, knowing that I had her, if I ever had bad times I wanted to talk about, I could just message her, And then when the breakup happens, it's hard, because she's not going to be there anymore, and it takes you a long time to get over that. Like, believe me, I know. And it couldn't have been that easy to forget about me. It's like, people move on, like you remember the good times, but it's like maybe it meant something to you, but unfortunately there's going to be a lot of circumstances where, like, when it comes to the other person, whether it's a man or a woman, they may not have thought the same thing, like, and that can be taken, and friendships too, like this, like maybe the friendship meant something to you, but the other person, it never did. And like, you didn't notice the red flags that this person was a narcissist the entire time, that's just an example. And, like they forgot about you, like you were nothing. Then you're over here like I remember the good times. Like, was it really that easy for you to forget about me? Like, I feel like that's gotta be, I feel like that's what that verse is talking about, but that's what I get from it. And that's the reason why this song like really speaks to you. Is like, your friend, like, you had your past, like things didn't work out, whether it was with friendships or relationships or things went south. Like it could be anything, but you didn't let it stop you. You still remember the good times, you look fondly at them, and you keep moving forward. And that's what I get from this song. And every time I listen to this, it always makes me feel something. Like I feel happy. Like this song makes me nostalgic for times that I didn't go through. Because, this song came out 20 years before I was born, but, that this song just makes me think back to my teen years, how, and how victorious I am now, like how much I've grown since then. That's why this song really, really speaks to me. And it's fantastic. And the other thing I like about this song, it's like no matter what time era it is, this song is going to fit in with every generation, no matter what time period. Goes back to what I said earlier. Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers music, it is timeless. And it's going to speak to millions of generations to come. And trust me, their music, it's never going to die out, man. They left such an impact with their 47-year career. And I think it'd be a good time. I think I'll cover one more song that I like off of here. This will be the last one. And I'm going to go with, now this is a song like, if you're like a diehard Heartbreaker fan, you'll know this one. Don't Do Me Like That. It's another, it's another Heartbreaker classic. And we take a look here at the lyrics. So here is the opening verses. So it goes a little something like this. I was talking with a friend of mine, said a woman had hurt his pride, told him she loved him so, turned around and let him go. Then he said, "You better watch your step, or you're gonna get hurt. Or you're gonna get hurt yourself. Someone's gonna tell you lies, cut you down to size." Now I gotta be honest though. This song, I like listening to it, but I don't listen to this one too often, to be honest. But the lyrics in particular, I've always kind of like, scratching my head. Like, I'm not sure what he's talking about. It's like, this requires like a very deep analysis, which I don't have time for. So I'm trying to see if I could try to do a quick little like breakdown of this. And I was talking with a friend of mine, said a woman had hurt his pride. So I'm assuming like two friends are having like a chat, and the friend's like, this girl I'm dating just broke up with me, and my pride is like in pieces, and the friend's like, you're gonna have to watch your step or you're gonna hurt yourself, like you gotta get. I feel like that's supposed to be like a saying of what I can't talk. I feel like that is saying, in other words, you got to get over and move on, because if you keep thinking about this, you're hurting yourself in a way. The more you think about it, the more it's going to hurt and bother you, and it's going to cut you down. And and that leads, don't do me like that. And then after we get to the main chorus, it gets back to, listen, honey, can you see, baby, you would bury me if you were in a public eye, giving someone else a try, and you better watch your step or you're going to get hurt yourself. Someone's going to tell you lies and again, cut you down to size. Now, I feel like that verse seems to be talking about how maybe the friend is talking with the girl that broke his heart. Like he's trying to put in a good word for him. Like you should give him give him another chance or something, like, because love's not something you play around with. And like, the woman's like moving on to the next guy like it's nothing, but if you keep this up, you're going to hurt yourself. And I feel like someone is life. Like I feel like the quote someone, and I think that's saying that life is going to, cut you down to size. You breaking all these guys' hearts is going to come back to haunt you. Like someone's going to tell you lies. And I feel like that's someone's life. Like life's like, you think you got life all figured out, right? And you're telling yourself lies to justify, all these hearts that you're breaking. And then life shows up and and you get cut down to size. And I feel like that's what that's talking about. Now, these next verses, we're going to get a little later on into the song. Now, I'm starting to wonder if we're getting like I'm wondering if we're getting like multiple perspectives here. Like, I wonder if like the first verse is the friend, and then as we get later in the song, now this perspective is from the other friend whose heart is broken because his girlfriend left him. I wonder if that is the case, because it goes like this, because somewhere deep down inside, someone is saying, love doesn't last that long. I've had this feeling inside night and day, and babe, I can't take it no more. I feel like that maybe that's the friend who we heard about earlier, right? Who's talking about how, like, I've had this feeling for this woman for so long, and our relationship didn't last very long. I've had this feeling inside, night and day, and I just can't take it anymore. Like, it feels like he really misses her, and like it's killing him that they're not together anymore, and he can't take it anymore. So, it's him going through the moving on stage, which I'm sure millions of men can relate to, like going through that phase, like, it's hard. It really is, because you were together for who knows, for a while. And then when she's not there anymore, it takes a lot to get over that. But as long as you got a good support system, a good family and friends, you'll be fine, And I feel like that song kind of like talks about that. Like, we go through breakups, it happens. Just talk with your friends and work through it and just take it one day at a time. I feel like that's like the main gist of this song, and I think this song doesn't get the credit it deserves, because I don't hear this one very often, like on the radio. Because for Tom Petty and the Heartbreaks, the classics like Last Dance with Mary Jane, Free Fallin', or I Won't Back Down. Like I hear those like or Running Down a Dream. I hear those like all the time on the radio. But when it comes to your work like this, I don't hear it very often. So I'm very happy that I got the opportunity to really dive into some of these older songs that I don't think get talked about enough. And those are really like the four main songs that I wanted to cover. And this album really means a lot to people. Like my post I was talking about earlier on Facebook, like really showed that, 70 plus comments of people telling me, like, hey, you should review Damn the Torpedoes. Like, that really sent me a very important message in of itself. People really love this album. And I really wish I could like interview some people, because this album has been around, for over 40 years. And this is probably the record that introduced millions of people to one of their favorite bands of all time, and I get that feeling. Like, the Back in Black album for AC/DC is one of my favorite records of all time, and I listen to that sucker from beginning to end at least like once a week or something sometimes. And I feel like, people with this record, they have a huge attachment to this. And it just shows you how much, this record really speaks to people, And that just shows you just what an impact this record has left behind. And now we'll take a minute and we're going to jump into a little bit more history regarding this record, particularly with its background. So, Tom Petty's recording contract was assigned to MCA when his distributor, ABC Records, was sold to MCA in 1979. Petty contended that his contract could not be assigned to another record company without his permission, and it was therefore voided. MCA responded by suing Petty for breach of contract, which prompted him to declare bankruptcy as a tactic to void his contract with MCA. The matter was settled with Petty signing a new record contract with Backstreet Records, an MCA subsidiary label. Now, that really says something, about Tom. Like, if you go back, like, through history, like, this isn't the first time that he's had to deal, with, record companies trying to screw him over, with his craft. Like, this was, like, Like, there's going to be way more instances after this over his 50-year career. And he did not let them push him around. Like, he stood up and said, no, like, I'm not going to do this. Like, there's all kinds of instances that I can bring up, but you could research them yourself. Like, this man was a fighter, and he didn't let anyone push him and his band around. And this thing that I just talked about is a prime reason for that, you know, like, he didn't back down, not this time. And the album's release and reception, the album was a breakthrough for Petty and the Heartbreakers. It was their first top 10 album, rising to number 2 for 7 weeks and kept from number 1 by Pink Floyd's The Wall on the Billboard Albums chart. Tom Petty's response to Westwood One about being taken to number 2 was, I love Pink Floyd, but I hated them that year. It was yielded 2 songs that made the top 15 on the Billboard Hot 100 singles chart. Don't Do Me Like That at number 10 and Refugee at 15. Thanks to the new co-producer Jimmy Levine, Damn the Torpedoes proved to be a major leap forward in production. Critical reception generally reflected the commercial success of the album. The original review in Rolling Stone raved that it was the album we've all been waiting for. That is, if you were all Tom Petty fans, which you would be if there were any justice in the world. And that really says something, you know, like, this album was a major success, and people love it. And I'm so happy that I was given the opportunity to really dive into this record. And so I just realized, so I'm doing some research, right? And I just found out that the 4 songs that I literally dived into with the lyrics, that was literally the 4 singles for this. The Damn the Torpedoes had 4 singles: Don't Do Me Like That, Refugee, Here Comes My Girl, and Even for Losers. Like, I had no idea that those were the 4 singles. Like, that's hilarious. Like, hey, it all worked out. Hey, it works. So that is the end of my review of Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers album, Damn the Torpedoes. This was an amazing topic, and I'm very happy that I got to talk about it. This is an amazing record, and I got to get into listening to it more. I had this record on vinyl, as I've said earlier, and I got to start listening to it more. It's a fantastic record. 40 plus years later, it's still speaking to people, and it's only going to get more popular from this point forward. So if you haven't listened to the record, maybe you should go check it out. You know, you never know. It's never too late to get into some new music. So I hope you enjoyed this recording. I had a great time, and I hope you enjoyed it. I hope this has brightened your day up in some way. And to whoever is listening to this, I hope your life is going well. I hope you're living a beautiful life, and I hope everything's working out for you. And if you're in a bad place right now, don't worry. Take it from me, things will get better. Life's a beautiful thing. We're all lucky to be living here on planet Earth, and human life's a beautiful thing. And just live one day at a time, man. So that is the end of the podcast. Thank you. You are listening to the Tales of Music and Film.